Well, boys, how have we been? It's been a couple of weeks since our last pod. Anyway, but yeah, let's actually introduce it first. We don't ever do it too early.
We never introduce it at the start, do we?
No, we don't. We're too busy chatting crap. I was gonna say chatting shit. This isn't child friendly anyway. I'm going straight for it. Welcome back, everybody, to the SpilltheTeaCG podcast. It's myself, Alex Dow, alongside Joe Bernard and Benjamin Yard. Rabbi, which one do you want?
I haven't got Jack to change the graphics yet. So actually, if Jack, if you are listening, I need a favor from you.
Well, we're going to continue calling him Rab anyway. But yes, this is the pod where we're just constantly talking crap. We will talk a bit of Pokemon. We will talk about other stuff as well. But this week we'll go over the last 2 weeks. Obviously, we had Birmingham a couple of weeks ago, maybe 2-3 weeks ago now, actually. And then talk about the most recent results for San Antonio, and then talk about what we've all been getting up to in the slow build-up to what's coming up in February. That's EUIC big tournament with the new Prismatic Evolutions being live and legal as well. So, boys, actually now, how are we? It's been 2 weeks since we've been a pod. Go on.
I mean, so the only reason we didn't do it last week was because I was suffering from a cold. I think, Alex, you've also picked up a cold the last few days. So I'm just out the right end of it, I suppose, where I'm starting to feel much better, which is good. You're still a bit phlegmy, you said, but hopefully it's the back end of things. But yeah, really enjoying Poke right now. That's the cool thing. It always seems to happen after you come off a cast. You're like, man, I'm itching to play some Poke. And then last weekend I got to watch a lot of San Antonio. Admittedly, I was feeling unwell, so I was just on PCG Live and just like playing on my own, but couldn't really do videos, which really annoyed me because there was so much to talk about, from everything from Birmingham to San Antonio prep to now obviously new Prismatic Ladder. But it means I've been putting in the try-hard hours. I'm also streaming again, so very happy to be like back in the thick of it, ready for EYC testing.
How often is the streams at the moment, or is it?
I've only done. Yeah, so I'm planning to do more than once a week, ideally twice a week. So it's still not going to be like every night or anything like that, but it's I was already like, because I started feeling ill immediately after my first stream. It was then like 9 days till the next one, but yeah, it's going to be at least semi regular.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Once a week from
at least.
Big step
That's all you need. That's all you need.
Why are you slagging that off? We do this once every 3 weeks.
New year, new me.
Yeah, exactly.
New me. Benjamin, how have we been the last couple of weeks? How's
Yeah, well, I haven't been ill. I've just been getting lack of sleep, really, which is, I'd say, equivalent, really. No, I've been feeling okay, to be honest. I'm mirroring the same as Joe in prep for EUIC and post Birmingham. It's just my interest in testing again is just skyrocketed back to kind of try hard levels, like you said. So yeah, really enjoying my Pokemon at the moment. I don't know if the Pokemon is enjoying me. We'll come on to testing in a moment in Birmingham, but yeah, haven't quite got the best out of it yet. The best out of my testing, but yeah, been doing okay. Watched a lot of football as well over the past week.
You're still hanging from yesterday, aren't you?
Champions League last night. Had a few
several Guinnesses down.
Elvino did flow. No, it was alright. No, it was okay. I mean, we could look if we had Jota.
Champagne at 2-2, wouldn't
it? If we had Jota, if we had Carter Vickers, if we had Kieran T, we would have won that. I think.
Can you explain Kasper Schmeichel's backstroke on the ground?
He's great.
Listen, you can't slag him off. He was busted.
He's great.
I mean,
he's still such a good keeper.
It was actually hilarious watching that little clip.
That was absurd. That clip.
Yeah. It was like It was like the John Terry. Do you remember the John Terry dive while he was on the floor?
Head in the way of the ball.
It's very similar to that.
As if it's John Terry was the first one. Don't ever forget the legendary Phil Jones.
Phil Jones. Yeah.
Oh, that's always a classic.
With the
why run when you can?
Yeah.
Do whatever the hell he did.
What on earth he was doing? He's splashing on the floor. But yeah, no, been okay. Been okay. I think just the lack of sleep is still getting to me. I still can't speak very well. Still can't get my words out.
Helpful for a podcast.
Yeah.
I feel like that's you most podcast weeks.
Yeah. I feel
It's
like
just a brain
my brain is working faster than my, I can't get my words out quite so well at the moment. I think just 4 hour sleep nights is doing me in a bit. But yeah, no, all good. Alex, how you been doing?
Good. Yeah, not bad. Look, I think Joe's already mentioned I've been feeling a bit unwell, so I'm taking the turn to semi-host this one so that you guys can talk, and I'll let you guys just run your voices into the ground. Yeah, lots of sports, lots of football. That's probably keeping me up at night more than my kids at the moment in terms of just fantasy and the other fan track stuff that I play.
Yeah.
Just kind of watching every player's shot, tackle, header, claiming those points where possible. When you're celebrating Paul Onuachu's headers and aerials for Southampton, it's a cry for help when you.
That's why I hated fan tracks, because sometimes you would lose by a point, and then for some reason, I think I lost to Tamau by 1 point or by 1.5, and it was like, oh, so and so had one extra attempted tackle than my left back. It was just, I hated it.
Well, yes, it's absurd right now because my first 2 draft picks were Saka and Bowen.
Oh,
yeah.
Obviously, Saka's out till March. Bowen broke his foot, but I think he's actually coming back now. So.
Yeah, it's not as long as you think that injury. Yeah.
But I'm sure you guys are probably off the normal fantasy anyway.
Yeah. That's tough.
I've had to do drastic measures on my fantasy because I never picked up Isaac. I lost so many points on everyone, so I've had to wildcard this week, which was painful.
You wildcarded?
I wildcarded this week, which is painful.
Who's the big chances in?
Of course, I missed out on triple captain for this week as well because I already did it because
you're wildcarding.
Game week 2. Yeah.
Oh, you've done it. You've already done it.
Yeah, I've already done it anyway. So, who have I got? To try and keep up with points, I put in 3 Everton and 3 Liverpool. And then just and then just the obvious ones around that as well. But I think Everton are on a bit of an uptick since Moyes.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to touch on it. I don't know what Joe's usually the one who kind of does a lot of research into this, but I'm contemplating playing that assistant manager
chip on Everton.
Yeah.
Could be. I think I probably won't play towards the bonus, but it's definitely if it's the classic. If you time it right, it's the highest upside, right?
Sure.
So it is exciting.
You need.
I never want to if I was doing a bet on who would win, I would never take an underdog really. So it's just not my play style. I'm just going to bank a good team and good points.
Yeah, it's the same way you've been banking on Haaland throughout those, mid weeks.
We're going back to that, are we? Well, look at him now. Who has him now? Only you.
Let's make our way back, shall we?
I was right all along. Am I above you yet, Rab?
No, you're not. No.
Am I not?
I think Dow might be.
Oh, I'm certainly am. Surely you've been shocking.
I think Dow. I've been so bad. I don't know why I never got Isaac.
You've dropped to 18. Didn't make any sense. By the way,
I know. I've fallen from grace.
You're
Seriously.
down in my realm. Yeah, I'm only 21 behind you.
Yeah, and I'm
playing my triple captain this week, obviously as well.
It's such a disgrace.
Wait, hang on. David Raya's got a flag on him. What the?
All the Arsenal players will have a flag on.
I've got rid of him anyway. I've got Pickford on anyway.
You know what? You know what Arteta's like. He speaks in riddle.
Yeah, he's lying again.
He may or he may not be okay.
The main frustration for me was I probably would have been above you if I'd done the right thing in getting Gakpo in, which I did for my dad, but then I got Watkins in for myself. I don't know what I was doing.
I've put Gakpo in this week.
Yeah, me too. But
you've
I should have done it last week.
I'm really interested in seeing your team, but we'll see.
It sounds like you've done a free hit team, but as a
exactly, which seems crazy.
Yeah.
So you're just gonna keep holding.
I just had to do it.
See, these are the things people will remember from a few episodes saying that you will slip up.
Oh, don't bring it up. Don't bring it
It
up because
was-
I said you
it was
was.
You're
only-
still ahead of me. You're still ahead of me. You've lasted longer than I expected, to be honest.
No,
Yeah.
the thing is, he played his triple captain.
No.
So
No, don't give him any credit.
it's only downhill from where it was. But right, yeah, that's
true.
enough fantasy talk.
Yeah, of course it was. It was only downhill. It was only
Right.
downhill.
All right, back to the usual then. So let's talk Birmingham, since we were all there in various different guises, and we haven't really quickly touched on it. So we'll just do a quick brief overview of our experiences there. Obviously, Joe, you were one of the 4 casters for the event. How was it? You were paired, I think, for the whole tournament.
Yeah, I was paired
which is
with
pretty
Mike.
cool.
Yeah, I haven't really casted much with Mike, so we were figuring each other out a bit. I think we've learned a lot about what we want out of each other, I think. So I think if ever we're back in the booth together, it'll be a more positive experience. I really, really like Mike, like personally, and I feel like he knows what to do so thoroughly in broadcasting in terms of his experience.
He's not listening.
So no, he might. No, but he is almost like a chameleon in casting, in that he wants to put himself somewhat on a scale because he's been all different sides of a spectrum. So I think next time we go on a broadcast together, we'll talk about how we want to utilize both of us, because I feel like I was just filling so much air, much more than I'm used to. Like Ross is the extreme, right, where I just have all the time in the world to think and I can come in with one-liners basically. But even with other casters on the team, it felt like I was talking a huge amount. And when you're trying to be an analyst, oftentimes it's not about having a stream of consciousness and mentioning everything as it happens. It's best as an analyst to point out just the critical things. That's where I feel like I can be at my strongest. But I feel like I was having more of that flow of consciousness, which I think makes my role less effective. So I think it's something that we'll work on. But really liked working with Mike, and just from like a friendship level, it's great that we had Shay, Ross, Mike. It was a very fun broadcast for all of us. We were hanging out the whole time. From Thursday we were cubing till like 2 a.m.
Nice.
And yeah, it was just fun the whole time. So really did enjoy the experience, even though there's stuff from the broadcast side that we want to work on.
Yeah, it's great.
That's good. I mean, yeah, it does. Obviously, is a fantastic group. We obviously had Ross and Shay as the most recent world pairing as well, which was really cool. So it's good to see them continue their development and their ways of kind of working together. And it's just I mean, the whole EU crowd is all good fun, right? That's why we enjoy it so much.
It's all good fun.
We keep coming back.
Alafini X versus Charizard. It's all good fun.
That
He said through Gritted Teeth.
as soon as I found that out, I got back after day 1 and I was like, right, put it on now. And I had it on the Airbnb on the massive TV. I said, put the volume up to 90. Go on.
Imagine my disappointment where I've had to stall for over an hour in the booth with Mike, waiting for this first round of the day. And what do I get for my patience? Opening up a Palafini X deck list and going, he has no win condition here, and his deck is terrible. Thanks.
I thought if I know Joe, and I do, he's loving this.
Well, that's what I was about to say. Is like I haven't actually watched it back in terms of the build up to that point. But I can imagine Mike with a massive grin on his face when he comes through. That we've got your matchup. It's Palafin. Joe hasn't heard anything.
Well, we didn't know
Mike with a big grin.
I didn't even see from the Discord what the table was or anything like that. So I only saw when it was literally the graphic that the viewer saw at the same time, which was player and deck, player and deck. So I reacted laughing, basically, like, what has happened here?
This isn't right, surely.
And I think I even said in the broadcast, I was like, no, it's not a typo. Those are actually Finizen on the board right now.
And a quick Google to remember the ability and the attack.
Bit, 0 to
what?
hero.
0 to hero. Yeah. I thought it was hero to. I
Hero to zero.
I thought it was hero to 0.
I mean, it's low-hanging fruit to do that in the broadcast, but it really did feel like went straight to 0 real quick.
But I mean, it's at least it's kind of the opportunity at that point to try and get a bit of a deck, right?
I would always say in early rounds, anything can be 2-0 or 3-0. So I would always preach for players before decks, but that's just me. Maybe I'm old and withered and just care about meta stuff. and other people were there for the Palafin 10 minutes of fame where it did nothing and bricked and passed and lost and then set up 6 prizes, then bricked and passed and lost.
Yeah, it wasn't a great game.
The thing is, you have to be so careful about those decks, right? You need to have thought about that deck and like how we can show it off to be an interesting situation and not up against a matchup where it has literally no win condition. So the nuance there is like, we've got a Palafin on 2-0 and it's up against like a big basic deck. So then the jeopardy is, if this deck's set up and is consistent enough, it will win because what it does can beat this. But it's like, against Charizard,
you can't really do
anything. The best draw is not winning that matchup.
It reminded me. It reminded me of when at the last Worlds where it was Ross Cawthorne's Shaman V-Star deck. It's the same sort of vibes because when we were backstage and we saw the deck and we were like, whoa, like this is obviously a deck that you would have never even thought of, let alone the card itself. And every matchup it had, we were like, that's a terrible matchup. How does he win that? How does he beat this? How does he beat that? But then it did keep winning, and I think we shown it. I think we shown it at 3-0 actually.
So exactly. But Ross is different, right? Ross is the pull in that instance.
Sure.
It's Ross. It's Worlds. It's a
I agree.
So he might start losing. So we have to get him now. Whereas when it was this instance, it was so early on in the tournament. It don't. It's just a regional. Get names at that point, so we can. Story build off of players who are more likely to make day 2, right?
Yeah. Just whilst we're on that, I will quickly point out that seeing Ross on the stream and then obviously his interview afterwards when they were talking about decks, it was actually so insightful. It was probably like
it was the best.
One of the few things I actually really enjoyed of the stream, like listening.
Few things? What?
You know what I mean.
What?
Right, Palafin aside. But just
few thing, and that's coming from a colleague as well.
Birmingham was a bad time for me. I tried not to remind myself of what happened there. Okay, right.
Few things.
Right, you're taking my word. And
right.
Taking it far, right? The interview was great. I don't know,
was
Rab, if you
a highlight.
It was
if you want to put it.
A big. That's how we wanted to say it. Yes, it was a big highlight for me of the stream to see Ross Cawthorne on it with his interview because he put his words across very eloquently and very correct and very politically correct, I guess is how we'd like to say on the stream, in comparison to some of the other things that we saw happen during that event itself.
True. VG watchers know.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to digress. But yeah, Ben, how about yourself? I mean, it was your first time away from the kid properly, right?
Yeah, and actually, after we recorded the podcast last week, I did have to fact check myself in that it was actually the first regional I'd played in for a whole year, and it was so. And my God, I felt it as well. By about round 3, I was completely done. I had like a sinus infection. It was like bright lights. It was just like, oh God. And then of course I was playing Stall, so it was even worse. I looked more depressed than my opponents. Right? That's the picture I'm trying to paint here. And plus, all of my opponents had a good matchup into me in one way or the other, and about 3 or 4 of my opponents had said that they had made decisions on their deck or played a deck for a good matchup into Stall. So yeah, I had a good day. It was a good laugh. All my opponents were really nice as well. Always up for a good chat as well, which is great. I think I persuaded you, Alex, to bring Stall as well, after theorizing a few decks and ideas, and of course looking at the matchup spread, Stall is still on paper it's very good in terms of matchup spread, but I think it got to the point in the meta where a lot of players were playing quite intricate or having quite intricate choices in their list to add certain cards that are not only good for other matchups per se, like 2-row or whatever, or a Jet Energy, and of course it inherently is good against Stall as well. So yeah, some unfortunate matchups for myself, but still I was still happy I brought it though, because I was pretty confident going into it with the matchup spread, like I said. But
Did you two play a similar list?
no, no. So
What was your list, right?
I did not know what Alex was playing until the morning.
Textbook
I played a very standard list. I played Rotom. I didn't play Boxed Order. Again, do not regret that choice either. Very happy I played the Rotom. I faced almost no Klefki, which I was pretty happy with. Yeah, just very standard. Very standard.
Okay.
Missed energies. I guess that's the only difference from what
vintage lat.
Yeah, I
pretty
don't know
much.
if that was standard anymore, but yeah, it's more vintage.
Actually, the one thing I did think of probably by round 4 that I wish I did had was a second cornerstone. That's the only thing I did wish I had in my list. But otherwise I was pretty happy.
You got night stretchers, right?
I do.
Played one. Yeah, you played one.
I do.
Yeah. Anyway.
But yeah,
and then Alex. So yeah, go on.
Yeah, just very quickly. So Birmingham, obviously, it was a bit. It was great to go back since 2017, which I obviously had a great run back then. So it was very much different going back to a place where I had previous success. I did play Snorlax as well. I was teetering between the Rotom build, and then eventually I was just handed at 12:30 a.m. The boxed order version. It was a version that Maze and Sander had been working on, and it's been discussed a couple of times in the CCG chat as well for some time now. But it's just full gas. It's just
I would know.
Pokestops. It's just an incredible card to just kind of go straight through box orders to kind of get your pieces up and running. Really, I changed the list from what they played as well. I also teched in like an enhanced hammer. So the whole engine is just with Miracle Headset, just turning through the deck and then just silently looping the cards that you need. And it was one way, for example, by teching that enhanced hammer, I did get a bit lucky with Flute, but then I can actually just chain enhanced hammers. So I would play enhanced hammer, try lean it back to the top, Pokestop it, enhanced hammer again, and then find ways to just keep going round and round. So these kind of things were quite exciting, and I think someone actually ended up doing really well in San Antonio with a Pokestop build as well, right? So we'll probably cover that in a bit. I started doing okay, and then I ran into some pretty tough last 4 rounds.
Matchups.
If I hit 1 or 2 of them, fine. I kind of expected that, but the last 4 rounds were Dura, Lugia, Charizard with Petron. And a last round winning in against a Duro as well, or Archaladon. I keep saying Duro. But everyone knows what I mean. Obviously lost against the Archaladons. The first one I had a chance, but he was able to rip off the last Turo. I tied against Lugia. I won game 1 through that means, and then game 2 I got kind of run over. And then the Charizard Petron, I don't think the person who played the Petron for that specific matchup, because he hated going up against Snorlax, I don't think he realized that you could just kind of clef key lock him. And it took a while for him to finally get those energies. And by then I was just like slowing the game down so badly that he just couldn't really do anything. I think he was probably a little bit annoyed, but I kind of get it. He was just like, I've done this just so I can beat this matchup, and I still struggled. But it's one of those. It happens. Play really great opponents. Had a fun tournament. I was a little bit ill. I think I started getting a little bit ill during that time as well.
Yeah, I think everybody did.
I had a great time. I got these new hoodies for the team, which is great. You can see I'm wearing it right now. It's probably the comfiest thing I've worn in terms of any sort of Pokemon gear. I collected some Pokemon merch that I've been buying every so often, some like sealed product. Some of the Chinese.
Have you opened
Pokemon
any
stuff.
of it yet? The Chinese stuff. Have you opened any?
No, I'm reluctant because they're quite pricey, and they look great. So that's the
showpieces.
I think that's the 5th anniversary one, which is like ballooned in price because there's a promo Pikachu in it. And then just above it, which you can't see on the camera, is the 1st anniversary, which has all like the fireworks, friends and gala, or the kind of like more Japanese only releases, but they release it in Chinese as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if there was an English one in the end. Joe, you might be able to tell me, but
A fireworks
was
one
like
there definitely was, but I can't remember what it was in. It
Yeah,
may have just been
so
one of
there
the
was
holiday
two.
sets, but yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, so it's like pretty cool. It's just kind of unique items. But yeah, the overall good event. It was great to see everyone again. Ben, you're going to quickly chuck up some of the data. We'll have a quick scan through as well. I mean, Joe, we'll just quickly go to you first because the deck that obviously ended up winning is a deck that you obviously hate, and you hate talking about it.
I hate it. Oh, I hate it.
It's
I got the I've got the day one graphic up. Just
all right, yes, we can start there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's we in Europe, I guess, is just kind of set a scene. It feels like we're a bit less polarizing in terms of the percentages, right? We're gonna look at San Antonio in a bit. Reggie Drago, off the top of my head, was like 13%.
Yeah,
I want to say
13 exactly.
Yes.
So
how much? How much? We said it was 16, right? We said
we put it pretty high when we.
Yeah.
No, I was lower than 16 for sure. I think we maybe
I think it was about 15.
in the middle and went 14, 15. I can't remember. I think someone wanted high. And
I
then
think
was
Rab
lower.
wanted high. I was pretty middle.
Me. It's probably me. Yeah.
I think we all had the sentiment that there would only be 2 decks 10% or above, which I think is true.
Yes.
I think the surprises from day one was we all expected the Lugia uptick. We've been expecting that Lugia uptick for like 2 tournaments now, and it's just not been there. The confidence is still not there. But this really is a case where you have to look at the day one in terms of the top 6, but also the best of the rest, because there's so many 6 and 5 and 4% decks in the format right now, which I think is an accurate representation of like we just don't know what's right. I'm a little surprised of how many people stuck with Thorn's Pulse. That's surprising to me. I felt like the hype petered out a little bit, but clearly enough people were still happy with it. What else was the surprise? I think Terrapagos Noctowl, which that 4% you can see in the best of the rest, that also encompasses the Palkia Noctowls, which is really important. So
okay.
that was the uptick, I think, of the 2. But high profile players playing actual Terrapagos Noctowl in terms of like Tords, who did a masterclass, obviously. So a handful of others like went back to it. I think Gabe also went back to it, and a few other like strong players went for it. But then there's also this seemingly out of nowhere. Like, I don't know if there's a trigger for this, but a handful of pilots just went for a Palkia Noctowl this weekend.
Yeah, that's right.
And had great results, as we'll see with the top 8 and such later.
I think it had probably from memory it had the best rate going into conversion rate. Sorry, conversion rate going into day 2.
For sure, it definitely jumps up a lot. It goes from 4% to 9%, so that's really good.
I think it was a group of players that it was a group of and I don't know, it was a group of players that knew what they were doing. They purposely went into that event playing Palkia Noctowl for their own reasons. I don't think they were going, I think this will be a good pick. I think they were purposely going in.
Yeah. You don't get given Palkia Noctowl, right? You've had to be the one playing it a bunch to feel confident with that deck.
I tried so hard to make it work, and I just couldn't find the right 60.
It was Babowl all along now. It was Babowl all along. I was right all along. Where's my vindication?
Maybe. I don't know.
I was.
It's a fun deck. It's really, really good.
I was really impressed with the performance of our Charizard, actually.
It wasn't super surprising that it did well, though, was it? I think we were expecting it to be about that popularity and be a decently placed deck, right?
I didn't think it would do as well as it did.
I think we will.
It did do quite well.
You say 6%? Yeah, it definitely upticked from 6 to 10, right, or something like that.
I'll get up to 2 now. Yeah, it went from 6 to 10.
Maybe the fact that it whiffed on the top 8s was the thing that sort of made it feel kind of meh in the end, but still a lot of people walked away with cash and whatnot and a lot of points with the deck. So
I think it could have made a good performance into top 8 considering the popular decks in the format.
It was the Palkias that started losing to.
The popular decks that were going into day 2, they could have much better capitalized on that. But yeah, like you said, I think they were starting to lose to those the more I don't know, I guess less popular choices going into day 2.
Yeah,
with Palkias and stuff like that.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Best of the Rest.
I mean,
Best of the Rest Day 2. There was also a Lost Zone box that made top 4. Made 4%. 30 decks.
A singular Lost Zone box that made 4%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Lost Box
even
isn't a big
Cloth
story
and-
either, is it? Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was going to say Cloth dropped off in a similar way, right?
No, I think Cloth stayed at 4%. I think. No, it went from.
I meant in comparison heading into a tournament.
Oh right, yeah, sure.
It had it gained a lot of popularity. Obviously, it had some fantastic results. What was it like, Stuttgart, and just generally any sort of recent tournaments where people were starting to pick it up. Maybe just from collateral damage of Regidragos having to put stadiums back into their deck, or other decks having to mitigate some of the Guardy popularity, for example, with towers and so on. It just kind of fell off a little bit as well.
I still don't know why people are playing Raging Bolt.
It did make asymmetrical cut before a DQ, and the DQ wasn't a malicious thing. It was just there were many marks on sleeves, and I've spoken to Reese about it. There was no malicious intent. It just there was too many impactful cards that happened to have marks on them. So it would have had a good performance. It would have been in at least asymmetrical cut.
Interesting. Okay.
And into Oivan as well, which I think is a good matchup for Cloth, as long as it was playing the Electrode, which I think it did, from memory. I can't remember, but I think it did.
Fair enough, but I guess
I can't imagine a list not playing the Electrode. I think
they started cutting. Some of them started cutting them, maybe
Only
incorrectly.
Yeah, I guess That's a cool.
But yeah, very quickly moving on. Just have a quick scan of that top cut or the top final standings, as it were, Birmingham.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we've already touched on it on Irvin's winning with the same Pokestop Charizard build.
Insane, bro.
We saw it not pay off in his second place finish in EU, but in the last EU tournament, I should say. Sorry.
Right. Yeah.
But then taking it to the final once again and actually winning this time. I gave
there
him
was some
congratulations.
There were also some highlight reel moments as well, right? He hit a double candy from a stop that meant he went from passing to popping off. So
that was such a hype moment as well.
The vindication was certainly there.
He really wasn't in that game until that.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
It did feel like he was very much on the back foot for most of that final. It felt like it just felt like Jonathan just had a lot of the answers that were there, and then.
Jonathan definitely made a mistake, right? He definitely, he'll be the first to admit that he made a mistake in the game at one point, but the game was already going away from him at that stage. The game 1 win was really clean play from Oivan. He did the take out Bibarel with Dust Noir into the Stamp, was it? Or was it the Iono? Must have been, I think, it was Bibarel's Stamp. It was
I think it was Stamp, from memory.
Pretty gross play.
Yeah.
Into swinging for KO. That was a really clean game from Oivan. And then the second game, Jonathan had a slower start, kind of had his back against the wall, and then had to make this ugly play. And then I think he forgot about Terrestrial Text, because I think he wanted to make a gusting play that let him do a Greninja in a certain way whilst trapping. It was either that or he was going to ignore Charizard for a turn and then just forgot that Churro exists. It's one of those two things happened. He either forgot Terrestrial Text or just that this is an easy Churro win here.
I guess one of the craziest thing is because I spoke to Jonathan before we even got to the final and he was playing. He's played against a few or maybe a couple Charizards in his run.
Yeah.
And it was always a matchup that was difficult for Palkia to Terrapagos. That is why in the early versions we played Iron Leaves. As a way to kind of combat that. Yeah. But he was quite happy to just punch it with Fan Rotom, with some Assault Landings, and then try and weave in sort of big Palkia knockouts afterwards.
I much prefer Palk Punch than a Fan Rotom Punch, but that's me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, where you can. But
it's so tempting to do the early Greninja. I can see why you do it that way round, but yeah.
But so Irvin won. Jonathan with second place with that Palkia Terrapagos list.
And also, just quick note that none of these players were collaborating. The 3 Palkias were not collaborating in any way at all, which is just equally crazy to see. This low percentage deck, not a team, just 3 unique individuals with their own personal playtesting, saying that this is right, which is just such a anomaly, right? You never see something like that. That's so wild.
With Jonathan, he's been playing Palkia Terrapagos for a bit now. So I think he played it to a couple of tournaments. I'm pretty sure I've seen Alexander play Palkia Noctowl to a couple of like online events.
Yeah, he said this was the
build-up
deck
to
he's
it.
stuck with in cups and stuff as well, so he's at least fairly experienced with it
Yeah,
as well.
so I saw like maybe it was a couple of like maybe Twitter posts where there was like some events that they were going or playing online and so on. But yeah, Ben Grove obviously replied to I think Uncommon Energy about some of the decks he was playing. But yeah, it was a great tournament for Palkia Terrapicos in terms of how it finished, and also done well in the same event on the same weekend in the LATAM event as well, right?
Yeah.
Did it win?
Second in both,
Second as
right?
well?
I think it was second in both.
Yeah. which again is kind of crazy. And then
No, it
just
did win.
quickly,
It did win. Sorry,
Yeah,
my bad.
and then the other placements are, I'd say, pretty standard, kind of what we expect almost. You know, there was obviously the Charizard, there was Brent again with the Regidrago.
Yeah.
I spent a lot
The
of
two
time talking
Dragos
to
faced
Brent.
each other in cut, right? So yeah.
Yep, in top 8. There was I can't remember the exact asymmetric top cut how many players there were.
It was 10. So Rune
There's
beat
Gardy.
Nicholas.
I see. Okay.
And the 10th place would have been Clorf into Oyvind. So Oyvind got a free win and went straight into.
Oh
top 8
yeah,
cut.
sorry, yeah.
And then faced 3 back-to-back Palk Noctowls. It went top 8, top 4, and final. Yeah.
Yeah, and in the grand scheme of things, it's a pretty good matchup. I think, especially when you're not generally teching for it.
Yeah, he had to play pretty well in a couple of those games, obviously, to get there. The Alexander, if you look back at the Oyvind Alexander game,
maybe that was the one I was talking about.
Alexander played so unbelievably weirdly in that set. And I think he was mildly embarrassed / tilted at himself because in one of the games he fan rotomed for Hoots whilst shuffling his deck announced pass before actually benching any of the Hoots. So that's the sort of stuff we're talking about, right? But he took like super weird lines to be like, I'm not benching Palkias, I'm not trying to Greninja early, I'm just going to try and like fan rotom the board, and then still got like, and whilst Oyvind was just like attached passing to a Radzard. I feel like if Alexander recognizes that Oyvind's hand is terrible and just plays a normal game plan, he never loses there. So that was a really weird top 4 game, and again, like on the broadcast, I'm just having to like laugh through it, basically being like, everything I'm saying should be happening isn't happening, and I guess this is the situation we're in now.
They were very interesting games. That they took. I think most games took everybody by surprise in one way or another.
Yeah. The thing that was interesting though was that we'd just seen Alexander beat Nofume Nofum in the top 8 game as well. So I thought that Alexander was big braining it, but instead had just like made a mistake. It was so funny.
Yeah, very good.
Right, should we quickly move on? I mean, we spoke a lot about Birmingham, maybe because we were all there. Should we have a quick look at what just happened this past weekend in San Antonio? So we went from just over 2,000 players in Birmingham to 2,400 according to Limitless in San Antonio. So just continue that trend. I know there was a recent tweet by Chris Brown of Pokemon who also were looking at the numbers, which were really cool. If anyone hasn't seen it, you could kind of see the growth of the game. Obviously having to manage the numbers at the same time, which is why we don't see the same regular year-on-year growth, because obviously they don't want to take more space and then not sell out tickets, so they have to kind of manage it in a particular way. But it's still incredible to see. But yeah, San Antonio, hopefully Ben's got up the day ones at the moment. I mean, still the last tournament in this, I guess, Surging Sparks format, right? I don't think we're going to be expecting any crazy changes.
No, I mean the meta for San Antonio was pretty similar. The only decks that went down in rep were our Charizard, and then that Lugia uptick that we were referring to earlier, that was materialized in the day one of San Antonio. I share the same sentiments as well. That with Lugia, I think Lugia is actually underrepresented a little bit in this meta. I've always said that I wouldn't touch it, and I'm not a big fan of it, and I'm not. But especially testing it recently, it feels and looks great, actually. Especially in this
feels, but it certainly looks great
in this Prismatic Evolutions format, especially.
True.
But yeah, so we have Regidrago and Charizard top again with Raging Bolt in that 3rd place for some reason. And then Gardevoir 6% and Archaladon at 5%. The thing about Raging Bull is I don't understand. It does terribly almost every tournament. I don't think it ever has a good conversion rate, but people still take it because of how linear it is.
I think you'll find it made top 8 again.
But it's just
It's
one.
overall stats.
It's one out of 170.
Yes. only eight players made day 2 out of that 169.
That
that is atrocious.
That is horrific. If that tells you not to play a deck, I don't know what else would.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've been trying to tell you.
Atrocious.
Someone's got to play it, right? It's got to be.
No, they don't. That's the whole point.
But I say this, but I've still got it sleeved up downstairs.
Oh,
I don't know why.
Just the only deck that's got sleeved up, apparently.
Oh, I've got so many decks sleeved up downstairs.
I have sleeves for you.
It's embarrassing. But yeah, carrying on.
Let's have a quick very look then. Obviously, we had the, there was obviously going to be some sort of impact from Birmingham as well, because we finally had Palkia knocked out on its own in the best of the rest day 1 as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Golden Go, we know, had a popular showing in Toronto. If I recall correctly, I think it might have been the 3rd most played deck.
Yeah.
So that still continues to be, fairly high in comparison to what we've seen in our shores. Their drop off from like the 6-5% is a lot quicker than ours. I think you've got a lot more sort of 3%ers that made it. They finally have best of the rest day 1s. They're finally following suit, which is nice to see.
Yeah. I think you need it in this format. Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
100%.
Definitely.
It covers so much. I mean, when you're looking at the first day 1 decks, which is only 55 or 56% here, it's kind of crazy. Like, what is the rest, right? This is it's good to see this kind of data.
It really helps when you're casting as well to have this view, because there's still so much to talk about in this meta. Like you said, Joe, these sorts of views in this meta that's so diversified, so flexible in terms of what people can play. You definitely need this sort of view to carry on the conversation, because there's so much to talk about in terms of meta and what decks can people pick to sort of try and capitalize on what they believe is going to be big in representation. But yeah, it's good to see Origin form Palkia Noctowl have its own uptick, because 94 is a big number for that deck, I think.
100%, very true. Before we quickly do touch on to the day 2, in terms of what the conversion rates were, just being nitpicky, it's quite amusing to see on the graphics where they have total Masters trainers and then total decks. So I wonder if there's ever going to be a discrepancy between those two numbers. Someone hasn't submitted a deck.
That is actually something I didn't recognize that. That's quite funny actually.
But it is what it is. But the day 2 deck analysis, Regidrago continuing to pop off as it normally does. 53 of that 428 making it into day 2. And then Charizard maintained his position, small drop off. Lugia picking up. Guardy, small pickup. Archaladon, sort of a small pickup as well. But then we finally see Origin Form Palkia V-Star hitting that first page, which is kind of cool. Our love of Snorlax made the top of the best of the rest. I mean, anything really jump out to you there, Joe? Just kind of reactions to a lot of tournaments recently, right?
Yeah, and it's also interesting to see Trapagos Noctowl on best of the rest doing well after being just off the map entirely. Probably like a sub 2.x% or whatever in day 1. That's a surprise. It's just really that I don't know why more Europeans don't play Drago. Honestly, the data the whole time has pointed at Drago being dummy good, and we only got 13% of the day 1 field. It's always bettered its day 1 to day 2. I think almost every tournament.
I was really
even when it's 18%, it's still bettered its percentage. Still had a really good conversion. It is dummy good. Why were we not playing it this entire time?
I was really close to playing it, and it shares your point, because I was part of quite a small contingency that came from that was traveling from Wales. We had a big Airbnb, and there was about 10 of us, I think. I was the only one that had a Regidrago deck sleeved up. Everybody had a go of it, and they were like, "This is busted. This is such a good deck." And I'm like, yes, I've told you all. Like, if you're not considering Regidrago to play for any major tournament, then you're I don't know what to say. I don't know what to tell you.
I had it sleeved up. I played it at Cups. I played it at a challenge. I'd done pretty well with it. It was just the fact that, and again, the reasons why I went to Snorlax was, if you look at the matchup data. I mean, up until that point, maybe it's changed. Maybe it's still quite similar. The decks that both Snorlax and Regidrago are good into or positive into are actually quite similar, if not the same. Yeah. And the same with the bad matchups. It's just the polarizing numbers that you get with Snorlax for those matchups instead. Regidrago could actually still beat its bad matchups. Snorlax has no chance.
Right.
No.
And that's what I went into with that mindset. If I'm going to go into these matchups, which I think are going to be the most played decks anyway, I want to just be secure in knowing that I'm going to beat these. And that was the mindset. Rather than going, I'm going to play the Regidrago into a bad matchup and hope I can just maybe squeak out, maybe outplay my opponent or
find the line,
find a bit of line or a bit of luck that gets me through.
There were two things. There were two things that stopped me from playing it. One was I agree, the matchups were pretty similar, and I'm better at Snorlax than I am at playing Regidrago. So
Cool.
that's one. But two, I think I'm playing myself. I think there's a part of me that has got too much pride in playing anything else other than Snorlax. And I'm just saying to myself, oh, I can't not play it. I've played
My
it for this long.
identity.
I've played it for this long. It's a part of me now. I've got about 17 copies downstairs, all in different languages and reverse hollows. I can't not play it at this point. But
Stunning.
It'll change at EIC, I promise.
The top cut was a bit of a surprise though. Do you guys know how many were in ASIM cut? I can't remember now.
No.
But either way, like the ultimate top 8.
I know Grant was.
Yeah.
I think Moffat was as well.
Yeah. It was a smaller day too. Maybe it was just 10.
Nicholas definitely was because he was on stream. Yeah. I should get that information before we start, but
either way,
all we know is it's definitely 10.
Yeah, but ultimately, even though there were many in that top 16, it didn't quite have that same reach into top 8 this weekend.
No,
and I think the notable inclusions are the 2 Pidgeot controls as well as that Snorlax in the top tables was a surprise for many, I think.
Well, this is a crazy thing. So yeah, we'll touch on that. No Regidrago. Well, if include Nicholas Moffat making it into the ASIM, but Regidrago, in comparison to its previous tournaments, is it a bad tournament for Regidrago that it's not even made like a top 8 spot? Let's say.
Is it the only one? I think Chip did a tweet about it. It was the only one in the West in this entire format where it didn't. So,
which seems like crazy, right? Because of how the consistency and the power level of it. But the biggest draw that I've seen from this tournament, I actually have been following James Kowalski or All Out Blitzel online for quite some time.
Of course we have.
But because I actually was watching his streams, well, at least like playback of his streams, because I was very tempted to try and take Pidgeot control to Birmingham. I just didn't have enough time to do it. So it's actually really cool to see that level of bringing it from online tournaments, the level of consistency and actual success he's had with it, and actually getting a placement like this. A breakout
thousands of games with this deck, and that's not an exaggeration. He has played thousands of games with Pidgeot control in different formats, so that level of experience being rewarded is good to see. And the same can be said for Henry Chow, right? He's the most experienced Gardevoir player, I think, in the world currently, and again, just insane results, insane play in some of those games as well, which was really cool. Although Grant Manley, he just literally picked up and copied Sanders' list. So there's I think he changed like 2 cards from Sanders' list from the previous tournament. So you don't necessarily have to have thousands of reps in with a deck.
But you know, at least it goes to show that people who put in the time and effort actually does pay off.
For sure.
For many people for the time, right? I think we saw his tweet where he was was it his tweet where it's like, you know, don't sleep on ladder because there's at least 3 people in this top 8 that were
Henry,
like
James, and who else was
Salmit.
Yeah, okay.
From what I understand, anyway. But yeah, so it's really cool, really impressive. But yeah, Henry took it down, took his second regionals of the season down as well.
Yeah.
Reduce the total number of US invites, I guess,
Minus
by
one.
taking another away. Yeah.
So greedy.
But he's not going to be complaining as he's taking another 10 grand away
Do
as
they
well.
still do the graphic that was the invite ticket? I wonder. I can't remember.
I
guess
I'm not too sure.
I guess they
Do
shouldn't.
they have it over there?
I don't know. Maybe they don't.
But yeah, he bested Alex Szymanski. Obviously, very well known player as well, piloting one of those Palkia Noctowl lists. With some cool inclusions as well. I actually really liked the kind of text that they played in it. The Silene, the TM Devolution, their way of countering
That is
those
a Charizard
heavy
solution.
Yeah. So that was really cool. But yeah, Alex Szymanski always
5 regional seconds, bro.
Yeah,
that would trigger you, wouldn't it?
That was something I was about to mention. But yeah.
But yeah, then we've got the Pokestop Snorlax, which is played by Salmit, which is again just it's so much fun just to kind of mill your own deck and then.
Did you play Kofu in your list as well?
I was about to say, did you? I can't remember if you played Kofu. No, you didn't, did you?
No Kofus.
I'm actually sorry. Can I just say how salty I am that this list has finally popped off? Because when the set first came out, I was touting headset Pokestop Lax as like the way to play the deck, and then I even did a re-review of my set review, and I was like, guess I was wrong on this one. And then suddenly it's not doing well again. I'm like, I cannot win. I cannot win here. Fuming.
You're not allowed to win.
It's quite an interesting. I mean, obviously, a lot of the lists are quite similar. I mean, you can't really venture too far with this list, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty standard for this kind of list. You're just milling a lot of cards. You're drawing and seeing a lot of your supporters. You get them back with their headsets. You Silene them back in. Yelcher them back in if you want to. Yeah, it's cool and cute. I mean, it was probably one of the few times that we were ever gonna be able to play something like that again, right? Because of the impending doom of the seed that's on its route.
But you can still Silene, Yelcher, Penny, a blocked Budew, right? I think that's still a winning line for you.
Yeah, that's true. It's just kind of
Rab found that out on an online tournament the other day.
Yeah, certainly did.
Did you?
Yeah. They flipped 4 tails in a row, which was quite funny. And then
on Silene, and then Yelcher anyway.
Yeah, and then I forgot about Yelcher.
Very good.
I was like,
whilst you were itchy polying them to
a turn on a Snorlax.
Because I used a Pokestop, and of course I milled one of my Jet Energies, obviously.
He was playing Sarah Ledge for.
Always punished. Always.
So sad.
Anyway, what else was there? There was a pretty standard Charizard, right? I think.
Joshua Wallace.
Yeah, pretty standard. 5 energies, Briar, Thornton's, Churro. But again, Charizard just still being able to find a place somewhere in the format, despite Joe's hatred for it. Another Guardi, Briar.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Go into the Bolt, of course, which is...
It played the Briar Vacuum combo again, which actually gives you Wincon into Guardian, which is interesting, and definitely the right call by the looks of things.
Yeah, I think Guardian's one of those weird ones where it's like people also want to re-pick it back up ahead of the new format, but the release of Budew and things.
People want to pick it up, and then they misplay with it and go, this probably isn't the play for me for 9 rounds at EYC. And then they get turned off by the thought of it.
In some people's minds, it can give yourself like multiple turns of just kind of misplaying, quote unquote, but still be okay because you're just stopping your opponent from doing anything.
I don't think it does. I think it's quite unforgiving if you misplay with Guardi.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
There's obviously many lines you can go down. That's the kind of thing you're gonna have to. One of the most interesting things that I'm looking forward to for EYC is basically that turns of where Itchy Pollen's not on is how players are gonna have to react and actually then spin the game either in their favor or maybe fall apart. Right. That's the most interesting thing for me. So I'm gonna be watching out for that quite a lot. Because. Yeah, I mean, it comes down to what's in those hands. How are they then going to actually just pop off? Which would be really cool. But again, also worrying that Itchy Pollen might dominate a format. I say dominate. It might just be there, right?
every deck has to have its answer to it, right? I think that's the story of it.
But yeah, I mean,
Should we start?
before we
Yeah.
even touch on that, congratulations to Henry, double regional champion. We're gonna probably see him at EUIC. We're gonna see a lot of these players there. San Antonio's done. Prismatic Evolutions is now ready. Boys, you guys have been preparing for EUIC. We're still a few weeks away. Ben, before we even touch on Budew, I want to hear about your crazy concoctions that you've been mucking about with.
I've been trying everying. I think after Birmingham, I was embracing Pokédad mode, and I was like, right, okay, what can I build? What am I thinking of? Am I just gonna have fun, or am I gonna try hard?
Start? Where did we start?
Where did we start, Joe? We worked on.
We worked on
Matang Heatran. with everything. By the way, all these ideas almost always has one Regigigas in it.
Sure.
We're talking backs. We're talking Baxcalibur box. We're talking Sinistra, EX and normal and the baby one.
Sure.
What else? What else are we thinking of? Actually, I just started toying around with the Feraligatr Relicant thing, but I think it's because it's post format. I'm like, maybe not. Then I'll test it though. Still, I'm testing everything at the moment. To be fair, I've been really enjoying this form of testing. I've been really enjoying this format. I think I'm pretty stuck on Ceruledge at the moment though. I think Budew, Budew gives Ceruledge such an advantage now. I think because it gives him the strategy into most things now, especially evolution decks, is just simply go second, Budew into Greninja, and just hope they don't play Manaphy or cannot have any access to a Manaphy through supporter line. I think Ceruledge, and because it hits such hard numbers by like turn 3, I've been really comfortable with it. But it does have horrific matchups into Lugia and Gardevoir, which are big turn-offs at the moment. Obviously.
Some of the best decks.
Some of the best. Yeah. Some of the best decks in the format at the moment. And I was actually saying to Joe last night, I thoroughly impressed with Lugia. I knew Lugia was going to be good to go into Prismatic Evolutions, especially with Regigigas, but I didn't realise how much of an uptick Regigigas gives Lugia. It turns out it's quite a lot. That card's pretty good, actually.
Good little single prizer. But I mean, is that?
But yeah, I've been loving
just
testing.
touching on these Prismatic Evolution cards, Joe. I mean, obviously, Budew was always going to be the one on everyone's mind. Everyone's been talking about it for God knows how long now. I've seen so many little seeds on my Twitter for God knows how long. Regigigas is another card which seems to be coming to the fore. Are there any other ones that we need to be keeping an eye on?
Not really.
No.
Black Belt exists. I don't think it actually makes an impact.
Black Belt, Black Belt with Festival. Hello, Diplin.
Diplin Festival.
Diplin,
80, is it?
Diplin's doing numbers, mate. Diplin's doing
huge.
Numbers.
That is huge.
And Seeking. Don't forget that one. I should just open up my live and see what I've been testing. I've been testing so
there
much.
You go. Yeah.
So much utter chaff.
Yeah, the Budew is having a big impact. Rab, I don't know if you have my recent Prismatic results, just to give people an overview of what's doing well. I posted it today for a day of recording, 30th of Jan, and I've decided just to combine archetypes this time around because people are getting confused when I do the weird graphic of lumping of stuff. So yeah, Pult is not individually the best. Lugia and I think Gardevoir both trump Dragapult Dusknoir, but Dragapult, when you also combine in Dragathorns and Dragazard, is in that bucket as well. It's not in the pure Charizard bucket that's just in A tier. So yeah, that's just a small note there. But yeah, Dragapult is definitely upticking a beneficiary of Budew for sure. It's a weird deck in that it has to cherry pick between locking with Budew and using TM Evo. TM Evo isn't 100% guaranteed in the list, but I think it really should be in the list, so you have the option of both. But it also gets to play Lance, or will play Lance now, so that you can set up under Budew from opposing decks, which means you're kind of unfazed by it. And when you are the one getting that free turn of Budew, it just means that you can string together the turn of Dusknoir Pop plus attack. plus like counter catcher, and you can just rug pull against a bunch of stuff now. Is what it kind of feels like. Even the 10 damage prod, you don't even need to have Dustoir sometimes. You can use that 10 to spoon onto a 78 pointer, and then suddenly you're taking again like the double basics out and whatnot. So it basically stops games from happening. That this list is more or less how I feel about it, which is a bit ugly. I've not enjoyed testing it personally, but I can see why it's powerful. I feel like Gardevoir is better than Draga personally. I think that's the best deck I've played so far by like a long way actually. It's not the same use of Budew in any way. Actually, I think you almost always go for Evo before Budew in Guardy, unless it's a very specific like board state situation. But just the fact that you can, at any point in the game, similar to how you have Morwhile in the list, or have had Morwhile in the list, you can do the Budew plus Monkey situations like an old Bonnet Guardy, and it just swings games so aggressively, so much so that we're seeing like even 3 Monkey Dory in lists now, which is so silly. I think 2 is the right count, by the way, but have seen as many as 3 just because they're really good into like Mirror and Dragapult, which is kind of wild. So I definitely have high alert signs for Gardevoir coming into EUIC. That's the one that really scares me. I don't think you really need to change much about Lugia. Like, we know its strengths and weaknesses. It's just got another tool in the tool belt, but it doesn't change its opening turns fundamentally. But it's definitely just like in a vacuum powerful. It's really good into Dragapult, which means its meta placement is like getting a bit better as well, I think. So those 3 are reasonably the top 3. Like, of the other things that aren't yet in S tier, I think Miraidon has a shout just because of its meta placement into Guardy and Lugia, and to a lesser extent it's still okay into Dragapult as well, just because they are forced into weird situations and ultimately they can't deal with hands very quickly, which still gives you like a lot of play there. What else do I really like? Yeah, I think Palkia could be upticking as well. Palkia and Noctowl could still be okay. Palkia, Dustoir can still do the same rug pulls of Dragapult, so it's just whether you want to have that like stage 2 engine versus like a Pokestop approach. Palkia can be like equally weak to Budew, of course, but at least it has Iridas to still find its water guys, so you can still brute force out the Greninja attack a lot of the time. Those are the ones that are like standing out to me right now. There is some chatter about Lost Zone. I don't know how much I believe it yet, but there has recently, just like this last couple of tournaments, I don't know in the late nights, but in some of the other tournaments I've seen, there has been Tina placements. Again, which is kind of interesting. With like Crispins coming into Tina, which is weird. So you can like Abyss Seek into Crispin into do whatever. And obviously this can be a deck that utilizes Sableye and Monkey Dory, and that combination is like fundamentally broken against Guardian and Dragapult because you just board wipe so many of their evolving stuff all in one go, which is kind of gross. So that's a little bit interesting as well. Oh yeah, and Ancient Box got second in Osaka, but it's like still really underplayed for us. I think people just have already made their choice about Ancient Box or not. And there'll be a handful that have played it before that will get a high placement at EUIC. I have no doubt of that. But there will not be many people, I don't think, bandwagoning to it just because they don't like the engine of the deck. But its meta placement, you can't deny it's pretty crazy right now.
Yeah, really, really good insight there. Because I feel like this is the first time you had an opportunity to really diverse and like discuss what you've actually been sharing on Twitter as well, which is kind of cool. I think this is probably a good segue into just... Might as well have a quick gander of the late nights. Obviously, they've just happened. But Ben, let's have a little look at maybe late night 237 first. I guess that's the EU. Sure. As Joe puts it, the early nights.
The early night and the actual late night, yeah.
But this is a really weird standing... And look, I say weird. It's probably what we kind of expected in terms of like placements and finishes. Maybe that Charizard Dragapult is a bit of an anomaly, but a lot of Dragapult, Dustoirs, Guardies flitted in around. You got your Lugias there or thereabouts as well. Kind of what we would have expected early on in any sort of tournaments like this with the new Prismatic Evolutions, I think. Because people are trying things out, right? It's obviously heavily skewed at the moment to what has been doing well, maybe across the seas, in like city leagues and so on.
Sure.
But this is one of the first few opportunities for them to try out some lists. So I guess we'll touch on that Charizard. Does Charizard have an opportunity to find a place in this format again?
I think Charizard Pidgeot is fake, and I think Charizard Dragapult is actually the way. It's not just this list that did well in the late night. It's been a handful of Dragapults that have been Charizard Pulse, I should say. I just said Dragger and Pulse separately, and that's so silly. Charizard Pulse, I think does have a lot of legs actually, because you have to lead into Evo, and you have to have means into getting Zard, and the Great Tree or the Grand Tree is just terrible. You can't be doing that. You can't be Evoing into Pidgeots and Charmeleons. They don't do anything for next turn, so you need to have this like spend Arven to like not Rotom and end your turn, but instead Evo into stage ones that do nothing, and then you just have no draw power in hand, right? So you have to have Dracloaks, I think, as the supplement, and just accept that you're not quick searching anymore, which is admittedly like really ugly, but Charizard still has type coverage into Guardy. It still is that late game bomb, you know. So it does cover the weaknesses of Pult quite nicely. It means you're not so tethered to Crispin either, which is one of my biggest gripes with Dragger Dusknoir, is that you are so tethered to that one Crispin on certain turns. Like, obviously prizing Crystal is horrific, but when you face something that can one-bop you, the fact that you are scrambling to find your one Crispin to even play the game that turn and can't hand disrupt feels so freaking gross. So yeah, Charizard eludes that headache, which is kind of cool.
Was it any of these late nights that you joined, Rab, to play, or were you just joining random tournaments?
Sorry, I just got the baby monitor. Yeah, I played a late night tournament last night, the night before. Played Sarah Ledge.
Was that the one you were being Snorlaxed?
Yes. Yeah, I lost to. I beat my Dragapult matchup.
His opponent was called Skibbity.
Yeah, Skibbity, and their username was also something to do with Skibbity. I think it was literally Skibbity Toilet as well, which was funny.
Rab's still learning about all of these.
I'm still learning. Yeah, I'm still learning. I did see on one of the late nights as well, somebody was advertising their meta fight in their username, which was great.
That was a winner.
One, don't you
Great
worry.
to see. That's such a good advertisement. Win and meta fight.
Do you reckon they've changed their name?
I did see Gabriel. I was wondering if it was Gabriel Fernandez. Yeah.
It is,
Yeah, I mean, look, the top three best performing decks all have answers to Budew. I think, you know, going back to that sentiment I said earlier about every deck must have an answer to Budew. And these three decks have pretty good answers. Of course, Read the Wind, Lugia. It's just simple, isn't it? You know, discard, draw 3. If you manage to have an Archeops in your hand at that same time, all the better for it. Gardevoir, I think, you know, its first initial turn, you're already getting set up so well. Any case, putting the Ralts down. If you just have that one Courier in hand, that one refinement can just simply get you back in the game, and you're not really worrying about the itchy pull in any case with Monkey Dory. And Dragapult with Lance and Recon Directive anyway. It can just get it back into the game, and then of course everything from that, what Joe's put down, A tier and below, can get screwed over so easily by just that one simple itchy pollen.
You think?
I think so.
I mean, I think Sarah Ledge and
maybe not.
are both there because they don't care.
I don't think so with Archaludon.
You've got him.
I think with Archaludon, you do depend on items a lot more than the rest of them for the discard synergy.
Right.
If you
literally KO the Budew with its 30 attack, but you're saying setup wise you're still lacking.
With the hammer, yes, with the hammer in.
Fine.
Yeah.
Fine. I mean, the low maintenance nature of Archaludon early game is why I think it's a high tier deck now, and also it is very good into Dragapult. That's for certain.
Yeah.
Well, I guess this is probably a good segue into, let's look at late night 238, right?
Yeah.
Because we've gone from Dragapult Dusknoir as the win with that Dragapult Charizard list in seconds, but the 238, which was obviously the one that has Gabriel's Hotel and the Go Check Out My Metafire as the winning deck, which is
look how much we've sunk. We're hyping Metafire at this point. Yeah. Guys, I never thought we'd do this.
People got to get paid, I guess.
Gabe is actually an expert player, so you probably are getting your money's worth. I've never done any of his courses, but I imagine he has good insight.
Yeah, but the top two decks, I mean, Miraidon and then the deck you were just talking about, Joe, Archaludon Archaludon, I should say. Is right? I think it's Archaludon is the correct way.
I've been calling it Archaludon.
Can't remember.
I'm
I remember
pretty
saying
sure
it
I'm-
wrong on. I remember saying it wrong on broadcast and being tilted.
It's Duraludon,
I think-
so it's
I think
Archaludon.
Archaludon. I don't know. There's been. I think
either
there was
way.
a tweet by maybe like Celios Network, by saying like he heard about 4 different versions of its name
Yeah.
being pronounced, which is quite amusing.
It's annoying because you say Duraludon, right? Duraludon. So you
Yeah.
think of the
Duraludon,
Archaludon, but
Yeah.
it could be. Well, also like we even have a pronunciation thing that I can look at, but there's Duraludon as well. Some people call it, right? So it could be Archaludon as well. So
I've
I
not
I
got-
need to get
I'm pretty sure
confirmation.
Ben's called it like doubloon
Du-
before or something like
Dur-
that.
Two
Dur-
gold doubloons.
Duraludon sounds just not right. It's got to be Duraludon and Archaludon. It's got to be.
Fine. I mean, that would be good.
Yeah.
That would mean we've been saying it correct. But yeah, anyway. moving on.
Do these lists ever change? The Archaludon lists? I don't think I've ever seen lists
Well,
diversify in
very-
any
very-
sort of way. I
They weren't
feel
very
like
much preparing for.
It won a 5,000 player tournament,
Yeah.
so you
I know
should
it did.
take that
Played
list
at it.
on, right?
oh yeah, I agree, but yeah, I there's not much room for maneuver, is there? In these
Oh,
lists?
I mean, they don't
not
always
necessarily
play.
true.
They don't always play bundle. They don't always. I mean, there is still some debate around Cyclone. That's not always guaranteed, although I think it's the right move.
Yeah. What's the is the other one Prime Catcher or just Secret Box?
It can be Prime. Yeah. It can be. It can be box as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Ace
Box,
Specs busted is all
bo-
I'm hearing.
box seems good.
But yeah, again, I don't think there's anything too crazy from this, right? Obviously, we had Miraidons. I mean, Joe, you spoke about it a little bit before.
yeah.
It seems to have a pretty fun time into a couple of matchups. Iron Hands EX is just a bastard to get rid of.
I think-
Oh, you really are swearing your heart out.
I
today.
think my
there are still
problem.
youngsters that
Phil.
watch Alex
Eh.
now.
My
Eh,
problem with
no.
my problem with Miraidon is that I feel so naked. I feel so vulnerable with a board of 2
Hello?
prizes. A board of 2 prizes
entering.
under 220 and 230 HP. I just feel like
But remember,
it
you've
just-
already
it
bundled
just
in and
it,
taken 2
it
yourself.
feels icky. I don't know.
You've already revved up and taken 2 yourself.
Yeah, but if you go first and they Budew you and you're like, oh,
Yeah, but your opponent's board is all 2 prizes because you're iron handsing them.
yeah, yeah.
I feel like Joe
guess
goes
so.
through these cycles where he played Miraidon to 2 events, and both times leading up to it, I'm pretty sure he was just like, this
All-
is busted. This is
All I'm
busted."
thinking of if
and
I'm
then,
playing
and then just suffered throughout tournaments whenever.
if
he
I'm
tried
playing
it.
Miraidon,
I
that
got points
first
at both. I played it, right?
that
Alright,
first turn has
5-1-2
got to
doesn't count.
pop off. That first turn with
that was
Miraidon
a
has
tough.
got
That was
to
when
pop
I
off.
shouldn't have played it, admittedly.
Yeah.
I also such weird. Oh, whatever. It's water on the bridge.
Oh yeah,
Anyway.
the 2 other decks I've been testing, Aegis Slash and Regigigas. There you go. Those were the other
Aegis
2.
Slash is-
Like
that's
like
a safe
Regigigas,
card
like
one, right?
Regis. Yeah.
Is it a safe?
It tested not bad, you know, Aegis Slash.
Slash is
It's
safe.
pretty good. It's pretty good. Grand Tree Aegis Slash. You hear it
I
first.
swear, doesn't it also just like tickle other Pokemon? as an attack?
120.
Yeah.
120.
Okay.
One
It's
Charmeleon
tickling,
can
is it?
one Charmeleon can go through your entire deck, but
Yeah.
it's fine.
Ben found that out the hard way.
Yeah, certainly did. One Charmeleon, it was game over. He deserved it. By
Right,
Joe's
okay.
side, he's the one who listens to all this. He gets a random
Yeah,
list.
I've seen all
He-
these lists.
he gets
I've
a
seen
random list at
gameplay.
like
Uh,
he gets a random list at like 2:14 p.m.
no, this is what
on
actually
a-
happens. He
on a-
sends me
on
a
a
meme
Monday.
just to make sure that I like knows that I'm
He's-
actually
he's got the
replying to
hook.
him.
Yeah,
He's
he's
hooked me in. Then straight away worms in with a list.
Because I'll get him with a meme. I'll get him with a meme.
Yeah.
This is how you get Joe. This is how you fish him, right? You get him with
So
a
then-
meme.
Yeah.
You get him with
So
an
then
office meme or something like that,
This is
and
a
then you
real
go,
tea.
and then he sends a laugh react or something, and then you go, have you read Heatran?
Yeah.
Have we spoken about this? That's how you get it.
There was
Then that's
one
when
where he said Baxbox, and I was like,
the juices are
I
flowing.
just sent back Budew, and then he just sent back Bruxish, and I was like, this is a conversation now.
I mean, maybe Rab has a point. Maybe Bruxish is the one.
Bruxish? No, I don't think so.
Built-in 3 damage Rocky helmet.
I'd be surprised.
It was Bruxish wasn't even my idea either. It was Hutchins' idea. That.
Yeah.
It was a Hutchins idea, is it?
I'll give you
So
some
it's a
insight
real
into the CCG chat. This is me breaking the CCG NDA, but Bruxish has been mentioned. Just
Yeah.
It
And
is
I'm not.
known.
I believe it or not, I'm not even in that chat.
No.
Crazy.
But
left
look at
I'm still in the development squad.
look at Gabe's tournament run as well in terms of matchups. He lost to a Dragger Dusk, but then beats 3 more. And he just faced main meta matchups, right? He faced a ton of Guardi, a ton of Dragger. Obviously, Lugia, you expect to farm.
Frost Monkey Dory.
Monkey Dory.
I mean, he came up against
Deck, right?
he came up against the matchups I would want to see him against.
I mean, it's a good advert,
I-
right?
yeah,
It's a good
I mean,
advert for the deck.
I-
and
It's all like
it's-
store as well, right?
I feel like
yeah.
Lugia's fine, right? Obviously, but Gardevoir Dragapult, I would like to see how the deck performs against, and obviously,
Maybe if you
like
could
you
just
said,
rush down
like you said,
Snorlax.
good advert.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Snorlax is perfectly winnable, and like most things in the deck attack, right? Like
The
that's
Lax didn't play Mimikyu either. I mean, there's Zapdos in Gabe's list anyway, but it was just 4 Snorlax and 1 Pidgeot in that list. So
that's the thing with Lax, right? I mean, a lot of these decks, especially the big bunging 2 prize decks, everything attacks. Everything attacks. It's
yeah, and it will Miraidon on its way around Flute
just
as well.
play-
That's what's important.
just play
Miraidon
something
out Miraidon, then
useless.
Miraidon fills your bench with all lightning guys.
Yeah, unless you manage to get a Radiant Greninja down and there's not even one on the list, or a Squawkabilly. Yeah,
They have to high roll Flute turn 1 before you've tandem united out all the boys.
You should ease past Snorlax, really. I guess there's like Lumineon and Mew, but because of the tandem unit, you just your board set up from turn 1 most of the time as well, right? So yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, right. I mean, the rest of the standings are pretty, as we saw from the other late night. Lots of Dragapult, Dustoirs. Obviously, there's a random Golden Go, random Snorlax, Lugia's there and thereabout.
I do think Golden Go is probably worse than Ceruledge now, though. I know Rab's been talking a bit about Ceruledge. I streamed it for like 3 hours yesterday as well. I was fairly impressed by it.
Was that your one game of the week? Is that what we?
Yeah.
Hey, I really like Ceruledge. I think if you go into this tournament wanting, a very linear game plan, of course you got Archaladon, but I think Ceruledge is also up there.
Ceruledge doesn't feel linear to me though. I feel like Ceruledge is a lot of.
Joe, let Rab have it. He only plays it one way, right? You Budew. You Greninja turn
right,
2,
okay.
And
And
then you start smacking.
I'm thinking of it.
Certainly games that go like that.
I'm thinking of it like a process map, right? Okay, so the first question is, do they evolve? Right.
Right.
And if they do, you go Budew into the Greninja as many times as possible.
By the way, they're going second, so you don't always Budew them.
Yeah.
Forget about that. Forget about it.
Sorry, your thought process was already wrong.
And then if they're big,
Also, we just said that the evolving decks don't care about Budew anyway because of TM Evo. What are you talking about?
Not necessarily.
Oh my goodness. We
Not
just had this whole
necessarily.
conversation saying that S tier is S tier because they don't care about Budew.
They have good Budew answers, but not all the time.
No, don't forget, Joe. He also
No.
Actually,
I'm not saying that as well, because the decks that do have a good answer into Budew, so the evolving ones, i.e. Dragapult and Gardevoir, they can't rare candy, Joe, and their stage 1s are 90 or below.
Yeah.
So you're always going to get a
be
Moonlight
fair-
Shuriken off.
To be fair, Dragapult Dustoir does not play Manaphy very commonly, which is a big boon for Ceruledge. Gardevoir will, but for some reason, Dragapult is not playing Manaphy.
The only thing going for Ceruledge for me is having that versatile game plan of going for the Moonlight Shuriken. That's the only thing. No, what? I just said
I'm not
what?
gonna no, you were saying it's so straightforward, and now you're saying it's a versatile game plan.
No, but it's still straightforward.
Fantastic.
It's straightforward in two different directions.
Right. So yeah, Rab is correct in that it's secretly a Palkia deck. Your turn 1 is get
Yes.
Palkia and Greninja down. Fantastic. If Charcadets come, great. But by turn 3, that's when you become the late game. You're almost like a Charizard
Correct.
deck. Because your late game
yes.
is like, I have 14 energy banked. I'm swinging now. Yeah. I'm ready. So yeah. And Palkia does complement Ceruledge very, very well.
It does.
Because Ceruledge can't boss on 2, but a Palkia V can, so you can take a 2-prize subspace KO into stuff as well, which Ceruledge, you know, it can't do that because you're having to research Yeet and look for vessels and ultras and all that stuff.
I think it's the aggressive pick for this tournament.
I mean, I think Miraidon's better, but I do understand Ceruledge. I'm still too concerned about the Gardevoir matchup because they play Manaphy, and so far my solutions are like, I've seen Jamming Tower, but that makes your own deck such a brick. I think a Vacuum is like kind of okay, but still kind of cope. And there's the Monkey Dory Dark package that you can add into Ceruledge, but that's relying on them using their Monkey Dory to set up math on you that they don't actually necessarily have to do because you put so many 2-prizes on the board all the time anyway.
Yeah, because of the playstyle of the deck, you kind of obviously you have to rip through the deck as soon as possible. So all of those resources you're thinking of adding in, the Jamming Tower, the Lost Vacuum, they'll come off usually about 50% of the time because you're running through it.
That's why Monkey Dark that's what was played in both of the Osaka lists that did well,
Sure.
top 16s. That's the one that's like you can yeet and night stretch them back and find them and use them.
But
they're still not that good.
It's similar. It's a similar story with supporters, right? Because you have a little bit of flexibility with Palpard, so you can get the Briar back in much easier than it would be other resources. But yeah, that's why I'm advocating for 4 Night Stretcher at the moment. I think 4 is pretty good.
It's pretty cracked.
Pretty good.
And I definitely think the 3-2 line of Ceruledge is correct as well. Because, like we've said, your focus is either early Budew or the Palkia stuff. So that sets up at least like usually 4 prizes because you're going to float energy onto the Palp to then turn attach as well. And find like Gust players into Fez or this, that, and the other. So then Ceruledge can just be the last 2 prizes in a lot of instances, or at least prizes 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, I really like it.
So a lot. We've gone into deep into
Ceruledge
Ceruledge.
detail.
Well,
Yeah, Ceruledge.
So watch this space, I guess.
I think Miraidon's better than
How much are we charging for that?
You said that.
How much are we charging? How much are we charging for that?
That was all because of the random Dengo comment as well. I was saying,
Yeah,
Dengo
exactly.
is not as good as
How we
Ceruledge.
popped off from
It's
Dengo.
gonna be
Ceruledge is better than Dengo now.
It's going to be on our Patreon.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
It's been a long chat. I want to raise one more question. Has Regidrago? Is it ever a thing anymore? Is it done? Does Budew just completely stop it?
I think it's still a thing. I just think it's more vulnerable than it was. It was always kind of vulnerable anyway. That first turn where you have a ton of the same. I share the same sentiment about Miraidon. You have a board state of all of these. I say little. All of these vulnerable 2-prize Pokemon, and you have to be able to manage that on your turn 2. If you can't manage it and your opponent has an opportunity to go aggressive and take some early knockouts, it gets really awkward really fast. And now you have to put in things like Crispin, and it's like,
It's also meta placement getting a bit worse, in that Lugia is going to be probably above that 10% again, which is like kind of ugly.
Sure.
And yeah, Budew is admittedly really annoying because a lot of the time Drago has been able to bumble and stumble through games where it's like not had the optimal turn 1 or whatever, but now it's like you have to be proactively getting 1 E-switch onto this guy plus a fire energy. You have to have a V-Star physically in hand, not something that you can like dig for with research and hit Ultra Ball. Your outs just substantially diminish so much, and you have to have just naturally the right dragon in the bin from your Legacy Star or from that research or whatever. And that just doesn't come off how it used to. So even if you get that turn to attack, it's usually not the right attack anymore because you're being prodded so much,
You,
which
you
is
have
so
to,
freaking annoying.
you do have to change quite a bit as well. I was going into this format thinking, okay, I'll still stick with Red Trigger, I'll still test it, but I think a lot changes with it. You know, you have to start playing.
List-wise.
Yeah, you have to start playing the Latias now. Play your own
I like
Budew,
Latias, yeah.
and the list was so
Haxorus as well, maybe for
yeah
Lugia.
yeah and I don't necessarily like that because it's
No.
becoming
I've
it's
seen-
becoming
yeah,
it's
yeah.
becoming more bitty. You know, it's becoming more
It
like
became a refined science over the last formats where like we
Yeah.
knew 59 cards and then someone would wiggle in a like Horlucha or a Stadium or whatever. But now it's like I'm seeing Crispins, I'm seeing Lati, I'm seeing Budews into the Dragos so that they can do whatever. Like Cleffer's sometimes out of the list now as well, which is such a good like fallback card. The Radiant Charizard you can't utilize as well either because you can get
Yeah.
like Budewed after they've Charizarded and they can do so much stuff then with like Monkey Dory and Dusk and all this other random nonsense. So you lose a lot of your cool play and your list gets weaker and you have to draw better. So all of those things mount up. Although it still has fundamentally the most broken attacks available to it, so that's still going to be the draw to the deck. And you know, especially its attacks are busted into Gardevoir and Dragapult as well. Fundamentally, Trifrost is cracked into those. But
I still
yeah.
think it's okay, but I don't think it's the best pick anymore.
yeah, and also it just seems like no one's come to the consensus of a good list yet because we've not had that like Osaka placement, or we've not had that win from a late night or something where it's like, oh, these counts make sense. This doesn't look trash. Everything I've looked at has been like people are trying some stuff to cobble some element of it together, but it's still just like counts that look weird or sacrifices you've had to make, and it just feels so dirty compared to where it was at. But it was by far the best deck before. So even if it does look worse, like don't write that off. But
people
also the metagaming is also a concern because like you lose the Charizard matchup, which was a big boast for you because it was always randomly the second most popular. I never understand why, but there we go. That's been
Here we go again.
Now there's like Archelon Lugia around as well as Gardevoir and Pult, which have better defensive plays than they used to have against you. So
All right. I think that'll do it from us. I think we got another Joe rant just then towards the end. Again, another little I hate Charizard moment. Can
you tell that I'm playing loads of poke at the moment? I'm so like into it again now.
I mean, it's a good thing, right? Because obviously, heading into a small period where you weren't playing or you were kind of looking at other stuff for a bit, and then all of a sudden, you know, your mindset's just shifting and everything's focused to this one big fat tournament that's coming up in February.
Joe, have you read Dugong?
Oh,
Have you read Dugong Finian?
Finian. Oh yes.
Right. Well, we'll take that one offline, boys. I think I think we'll cut it here at this point before Rab starts sending more random Pokemon cards into the chat.
Send you a list now.
Thanks everyone for actually sticking around whilst Rab's still going on. Make sure you hit that subscribe. Make sure you just let us know. We really enjoyed everyone coming up to us in Birmingham and saying hi about the pod as well, or just us in general. But yeah, thank you very much. This is the SpilltheTeaCG podcast.
Bye.
Did you just do a wank side?